All right, well, thank you for the invite and all the technical shenanigans that we have to go through to be able to present this both live and online. So my talk is fast trains and sugarcane, and it's all about Florida over a period of 2008 till earlier this year. And this is a map of the Florida rail network. The red line on the right is Florida East Coast. It goes from Jacksonville down to Miami. Brightline is now using their trackage from Miami up to Cocoa Beach and then on to Orlando. We're going to look at two commuter operations. Around Orlando, we have Sunrail. And then in the south from Miami, we've got Tri-Rail. We're going to do a little look at one of the short lines because they had some interesting power I ran into earlier this year, and then finish up with the U.S. Sugar Corporation operation around Lake Okeechobee. So this is Henry Flagler, and he was a founder and a partner in Standard Oil with John D. Rockefeller, and he traveled to St. Augustine, Florida in 1878 on the advice of his wife's physicians because of her poor health. She died 2 years later, and he married her nurse. And she was named Ida, and he and Ida found St. Augustine charming, but the hotels and the local transportation were not very good. And he continued to enjoy the area, so he decided, well, I got a lot of money. I think I need to build the tourist industry up and maybe build a railroad. So he started with the Ponce de Leon Hotel, and it's still there in St. Augustine, and it's been beautifully restored, and you can tour it if you want. It's part of the campus of Flagler College. And he bought a couple of short lines between Jacksonville and Daytona, and they were the beginning of the Florida East Coast Railroad. He extended his railroad south. He added additional hotels, including the Breakers here in West Palm Beach. And he thought this would be the terminus of his railroad because it was always going to be warm in West Palm Beach. And even in the darkest winter, he wouldn't have to go any further. But they really had some severe winters and freezes in 1895 and 1896. So he said, I guess we're going to Miami. So he did. And then in 1912, the Key West extension was built as the Overseas Railroad. Of course, you all might know it was destroyed in the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, and the railroad fell on hard times. Flagler died in 1913, but the railroad at that point was owned by the DuPont family, and then it was owned by the St. Joseph Paper Company, Florida East Coast Industries, and in 2017, the actual Florida East Coast was sold to a subsidiary of Grupo Mexico, and you may have seen their paint on some of the locomotives recently. The Florida East Coast Industry sold off the railroad, but they kept a lot of the commercial property, and they decided to develop Brightline in part to increase the value of those commercial properties. So that's a little history of the railroad. So 4 of these SD70Ms arrived in 2008, and they were seen on some of the hottest trains. This one is the northbound 202 between Hobie Sound and West Palm Beach. This was one of the reasons I think that Bill Kaufman and I finally decided we were going to go photograph this railroad in 2008, and we're going to see more of the pictures from that trip. But first, let's show you this. These were leased locomotives, and they stayed until 2014, and they were returned to the leaser, and the Providence in Worcester picked up 2 of them, 100 and 102, and they were quickly repainted in the P&W's orange and chocolate livery. They've subsequently been repainted in orange G&W. But Bill and I had the privilege of getting an escorted tour of the Worcester Yard by a friend of ours who happened to work for the railroad, so we could get some pictures of 4301. On that same trip, we ran across Vermont 431, which was another one of the Florida East Coast engines. This is leading the North Bennington to Rutland freight train through Clarendon, Vermont in the summer of 2016. These two have subsequently been painted in the VRS scheme. In 2009, FEC got 4 more units. They were released. They were painted red, white, and blue, similar to the Rail America scheme, which was also owned by Fortress Investments, which owned the FEC. And here is 105 and 107 on a northbound train passing through Stuart, Florida on a rather gloomy winter's day. I'm up on the US Route 1 Roosevelt Bridge that crosses the tracks here. The backbone of the FEC fleet, however, was a group of GP38s, 40s, and 40-2s. They were used primarily and still are on the locals. Occasionally you see them in the through trains. This was taken in Rockledge, Florida in 2008. And this was in what was referred to as the hurricane scheme because of that circle around the FEC, which the railroad denies is not to be taken as a hurricane, but something like moving forward. But the rail fans call it the hurricane scheme. Here are a pair of 40s and a 40-2 in the slightly newer scheme. This is train 224 that's going across the San Sebastian River in St. Augustine. They later moved to this lighter blue scheme, which has the same lettering, sort of a fallback to what was on the E's and F's in the passenger days. The font is called F-liner. And they have since gone on to a newer scheme, which I've never photographed since they came under the control of Grupo Mexico. Then a couple of units that they did special schemes on. This is one of the Susan B. Komen Race for the Cure locomotives. They have 2 of those. And then they recently did an honoring the veterans unit. And you can see on the rear, the red portion on the rear, that sort of stylized 3 lines in the C that's supposed to stand for FEC, which is now the nose logo in the newer scheme on these Jeeps. Then they acquired 22 SD40-2s in 2002 from some obscure Western railroad you might recognize from this paint scheme. And they kept the scheme and just re-lettered those units. Recently, they've painted some of those in what's referred to as the champion scheme. 7 of them have been repainted. Some of them have been sent offline and are being leased. At one point, CSX had a few of them. And then the latest addition to the fleet were 24 of these ES44C4s. They showed up in 2014 in what's called the champion paint scheme. And this is the latest iteration of their paint scheme. Not a totally unattractive scheme, quite different. And a good portion of the fleet has already been repainted, except the units. They shipped about 7 or 8 of the ES44 C4s off to Grupo Mexico's lines in Mexico. So they're no longer on the property. So let's take a tour of the railroad. We're going to start on the north end and we'll work our way south. This is at Bowden, which is just south of Jacksonville. They usually stage the southbound trains here before the road crews get on. And this is one of the few places where you can get a photo of a Florida East Coast freight, at least the through freights, and get ahead of it because they move pretty fast. 50, 60 miles an hour, and they're really not railroad. It's not a railroad you can chase very easily. This is on my first trip with Bill Kaufman in 2008. This is train 101, which was the hotshot Sunday evening through, I think, Friday evening train that ran out of Bowden. It's just crossed the San Sebastian River in St. Augustine. And Henry Flagler, the founder, his final resting place is under the dome of the Presbyterian Memorial Church there in the background. This is on a later trip. You back up a little bit to a grade crossing, and you got some different angles. And here, this is train 111. In the background, those spires are the Prince de Leon Hotel, which is now part of the college. And the building on the right was the FEC headquarters, but that's now part of Flagler College. Same location, sun is just about ducked behind the palm trees behind me, but still illuminating the church. I thought this was just a nice scene, and so I'm going to foist it on you guys. One of the things to notice is when you look at these trains, you may notice you see auto racks, you see stone or hoppers, you see intermodal, and they don't make too much of a distinction on the traffic that goes on any one train. Some of them primarily haul rock or intermodal, but they'll put whatever's in the yard that needs to head in whatever direction on the train that's going to leave next. They don't call it precision scheduled railroading, but they actually accomplish it. Their trains run fast. They meet usually at predetermined locations. Most crews start out from Jacksonville or Miami, go halfway, meet a train coming the other way, go back to their home terminal. If there's no train to meet the other way, a cab with the crew meets them with the new crew to continue, and the cab then takes them back to their terminal. So it's a very efficient railroad.
Yeah. Is it still non-union?
As far as I know, yeah. Don't quote me on it, but I've not heard of them being unionized since that strike in what, 63 or something. Yeah. And there are a lot of I'm in the historical society, and their Facebook page is for historical society members. And you know, the most senior engineer in the railroad is always posting, I'm on 101, I'm leaving at such and such a time. I got, 8:21, 8:30. So they're very rail fan friendly. So now we're on the US 1 bridge in St. Augustine, and that's the San Sebastian River. And this is about 1 in the afternoon with one of the southbounds going over the bridge. This is a very popular rail fan spot here. I've met a lot of rail fans that I know on Facebook at this location. This is looking the other way in the morning with the northbound. Their schedule has changed a bit, but they typically would have a couple of northbounds early in the morning, a couple of southbounds late in the afternoon and evening. A lot of their ground is covered at night, especially now with Brightline. There's not a lot of daytime traffic. All right, and this is another shot off the sidewalk of US 1 in St. Augustine. There are a lot of locals that run. This is 905, which goes from Bowden to Bunnell, working in the Bayard Industrial Park. There's another view. Very close to where we shot that first one. This is at Dorena. This is a little south of St. Augustine. You see the signals. They used to have an ATC set up where you could look at the entire railroad. If you remember the FEC group, as they had it online. With all of the changes with Brightline, that's gradually disappearing. They now are calling signals, however. So something, if you're a rail fan and you get the frequencies, they're calling signals on the FEC. This is at Bunnell. That's train 101, which is their hot southbound. The day we were there, we were fortunate enough to catch a northbound. This is 208, which has since been abolished, and you see most of that is stone, but on the rear, you may see auto racks, you may see intermodal. There's Bill Kalkman logging in the train number, locomotives numbers at Bunnell for his records. This is another local. This is 910. This is the Dorena turn at Ormond Beach. This is the Daytona Beach International, I'm sorry. If you're visiting the Daytona Beach International Speedway, you might be able to get this. This is the municipal golf course. Very easy access. There's a road that crosses the tracks and you can hang out here. This is 105 now in this time slot. It usually comes by about 4 in the afternoon, almost by clockwork every weekday afternoon. So this is a popular train for the rail fans to get because they know when and where it will be. This is the new Smyrna Beach to Dorena local, switching to New Smyrna Beach. That's my brother down there getting his shot. Another one of my favorite places is Melbourne. This is Crane Creek, which empties into the Intercoastal Waterway. The US 1 parallels the FEC right here. And this is northbound number 202 over Crane Creek. This was in 2008. There's a nice park here. You can see that on the right. There's a street with parking. There's a parking lot with parking, and you can hang out here. And if you don't see trains running, there's lots of wildlife, and maybe you'll even see some manatees if you look hard enough. Same location. This is after the champions arrived. This is in March of 2015. This is train 336, which is a regular. It comes up from Miami with Rock and goes to Titusville. Usually shows up here early in the morning. Usually has SD40-2s on it. Not always, but most of the photos I've seen. This is the power. Later in the day, you go to the other side. This is a southbound. This is 101 at that time, which was regularly scheduled through here about 4, 5 o'clock with a couple of 40-2s and one of the Rail America type 70M-2s. Here we are with the champions leading in the same location, probably the same train, given the sun angle. While waiting for trains, like I said, there's a lot of wildlife, so I decided to throw in this photo of an osprey. Just caught his dinner. You can see in his tail end on the right. That tender in the middle is something that FEC GE worked together with to bring this to fruition. They're running with 80% liquid natural gas, 20% diesel, and they converted all of their ES44 C4s to use that fuel, although they still can apparently use diesel as well because that's what they're using in Mexico. And what GE did was provided one of their units that could use this fuel. And while they were cycling the FEC unit through their factory to retrofit it, they had a lease for them. So that's why that third unit is a GE. Same location here. This is in 2024. You notice the bridge looks a little different. The railroad was primarily single tracked. They've now double tracked almost all of it, rebuilt all of these bridges with one exception that I know of. So this is southbound Brightline, bright orange. They're named by the color. Each train has 4 venture cars, a Siemens SC44 Charger at each end. They now have 9 train sets. Another 30 cars are on order, and 7-car trains are planned. And between Miami and Orlando, they run 32 trains a day, 16 in each direction on an hourly basis. So if you're not tired of looking at passenger trains, you don't have to wait long to see something, and they're all painted differently. This is one of my favorite shots on the FEC. I was there with my brother, I think in 2015, and they had a derailment up near Cocoa Beach, and it delayed a lot of their traffic and stuff that usually would be gone by the time the sign came up was we could photograph. This is taken from the 3rd floor of a parking garage in a medical building on the south side of Crane Creek. There's no gate, no guard. Just, sort of be inconspicuous and linger in your car until you see the train. There are these big open windows, I'll call them, but there's no glass. And it's just a great photographic opportunity. We head a little further south. We have a little yacht basin here at Palm Bay. So here's bright green heading south. Next location of significance is Roseland, where you have the San Sebastian River, and it's the longest bridge over the FEC. On the south side, the south side of the river, both east and west sides of the tracks, there are places where there's either public dock or a parking lot where you can hang out and photograph trains. Just north of that bridge, here's the 920 local. I'm sorry, yeah, this is 920. No, I don't know what the number is, but it's an Oak Hill siding, and it has just met a northbound, so it's ready to cross the bridge. We're on the dock on the southwest quadrant, watching 101 head south. Same location a few years later. This is the Kissimmee Wrap, named after Kissimmee, which is a town south of Orlando. The first 4 wraps caused a bit of controversy because they covered the windows, and the patrons weren't very happy. They've since removed some of those and replaced them with newer sponsors, of course, with wraps that are somewhat transparent. We go over to the other side of the bridge in the morning, and this is local 920 from the parking lot. This is going up from Fort Pierce to Pineda. Same location a little later. This is the southbound 109 with the stone up front. Tankers right behind. Early in the morning, here's 109 running ahead of schedule. And you can see the tender between the 2 ES-44 C4s. Now we're in Fort Pierce. This is taken from the Citrus Avenue Bridge. This is bright purple, if you couldn't figure that out. All right, and then we're going to move on to Stewart. This is my favorite spot on the FEC. Here I am sitting on the dock. I don't know if it's a bay, but I'm sitting on the dock. This is the stub end of Old Dixie Highway, which used to be a great photographic location. Unfortunately, now it's fenced off. That's Dixie Highway on the right, which parallels the railroad from, I think, Hobie Sound up to Jensen Beach. The railroad on the left with the single track bridge, which is still there. And you can see the lift portion on the far left of it. And then up above is the Roosevelt Bridge for US 1. The railroad and Dixie Highway sort of make a big sweeping curve, and Roosevelt Road, or the Roosevelt Bridge, US 1 goes over it both on the south end and the north end of the bridge. So you get 2 photo opportunities, actually 4, because you can shoot from either side. And here's a waterfront park, which is under the bridge in the south end. And I bring this to your attention because there's free parking, free restroom, free Wi-Fi, a restaurant, and you're very close to the bridge. And when the bridge is going to go down because the train's coming, a klaxon will sound. So you get about 5-10 minutes to get in position. So it's a great place to hang out. So now we're going to go up the Roosevelt Bridge, and this is the money shot on the FEC as far as I'm concerned. This is some January in 2011. This is the southbound 109, which usually gets there at least this time of year around sunup. Just a beautiful scene there, wider angle shot. And then I'm just getting artsy here with a little pan shot of one of the hopper cars that carried the stone. This is back in 2009. This is one of the SD70Ms and the 40-2 on train 109. This was the day that they had the derailment, and everything was delayed, and so we got lots of shots in Stewart that we might not otherwise get because of the timing of the train. So here's a little more towards the front of the train from the sidewalk. Down on the ground, the north end of the bridge at a grade crossing. Back up on the bridge, move around a little further south to get an angle from the other side. And even if it's a gloomy day or the sun isn't up, you can still get some interesting photographs. Another shot from Roosevelt Bridge. This is the local. This runs on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It often works in Stewart, comes down from, I think, City Point. If you're down by the cafe in the park and go on the walkway that goes out towards the bridge under it and over to the other side for pedestrians, this is a shot from water level. And same location, this is the Brightline Bahamas wrap. The first time I saw this, I didn't see the whole car. All I saw was the 7/8 of it. I didn't see the BA, and I wondered, why have we got a car for Hamas? Had me for a moment. All right. And then here we are up on the bridge, looking at bright orange as it's going north. Down on the ground in downtown Stewart, this is a northbound. This is 202. It usually comes through in the middle of the afternoon. And I like this because you have the water tower with the flag and the Stewart on it to identify where you're taking the photo. You can go up on the bridge and do the same thing. Towers in the background, you see downtown Stewart on the left. All the palm trees, your park is just out of view over on the left. So you could, especially with Brightline running now, you could easily spend a day in Stewart, and you have so many different angles to photograph. This is, at that time was 101, which was usually showing up there about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. This is the grade crossing just to the north of where the bridge crosses the railroad on the north end. You get up on the bridge. This is the view of the same general location. This is train 101. This is one you can reasonably count on to be there at this time, 5, 6 o'clock. You can park nearby, but you don't have the benefit of any warning, so you really have to walk up on the bridge and just wait. There's a wide angle view of the same train. This is the same location in the Champion era. And now we have Brightline, and you can see that it's double tracked. This is a Sailfish Fountain, which is right next to the tracks downtown. There was a really nice burger joint right on this circle. We could have a burger. You heard the grade crossing signal go off, hop across the street, and get a picture of northbound 222 with the Lyric Theater in the background. I was there in 2011, January 2011, and we got word that the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Blue Unit circus train would be heading our way. They had two SD70Ms and 60 cars coming across the Stewart Draw. It had 20 passenger cars, 40 flat cars carrying everything needed to put on the greatest show on earth. And I have some friends who are fans of circus trains, so I did a roster shot of every car. I will show you three. You want the others, talk to me later. So here's one of the cars from the passengers. A lot of flat cars with all sorts of various equipment, pickup trucks with generators. And then these circus wagons. I don't think these probably had any animals in them. From that same location, this is on the end of that truncated Dixie Highway that they've now closed off. This has got the Florida East Coast 100th anniversary of the Speedway Commemorative Unit 2nd. So that's why I included that one. A telephoto lens from the same place with the Miami to Jacksonville 202 crossing the drawbridge. And the sun is up behind the scenery behind me. I like the reflections here.
Jim, where did that Dixie Highway extend to?
Well, I know it goes all the way down to West Palm Beach, maybe further. And I don't know how far it goes north.
Oh.
I mean, it's sort of an alternate to US 1. So at some point it just probably blends into one. Like I think when you're up at Melbourne, I don't think they call it Dixie Highway. Yeah. It's fairly easy to get around, but again, chasing is next to impossible because they move so fast. So this was back when there was the Pelican Cafe, instead of what's now Hudson's, where you could sit outside in the sand eating a shrimp basket and having a beer. And then when the klaxon went off, you could go over and take a picture of the trains. Here, it was, a little late. I got nothing but a blur shot, but this is my brother's documenting me taking a picture of southbound 101 that was running a little late that January evening, and to hang out in short sleeves in January in Florida is kind of fun. So now we'll go a little south to Jupiter. It's another location where you can relax on a waterfront park, wait for that warning klaxon to give you an alert. There's also the Jupiter Lighthouse, which is really interesting. And, if you have somebody who doesn't want to wait around for the train, they can go visit the lighthouse. So this is a northbound, this is a 202 crossing the Jupiter Draw about 10:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, let's say. No longer runs in that time slot, unfortunately, but you can get passenger trains. And this has got to be some of the priciest real estate next to railroad tracks in the country. This is really expensive. I've met a couple of people who live there. Bill, you and I stayed in a motel there, right? Yeah. And the guy in the motel had what, a white Rolls outside the office. That was his car. Here's another northbound on the bridge at Jupiter. This again in 2008. And then we got a southbound again, number 109, which is one of the most dependable daylight trains. There's the 920 local from Fort Pierce. And I want to know how that shopping cart got on the first pier in the foreground.
Is that now a double track bridge?
Yes, there it is. Thanks for the plant. Yeah, it's double tracked. And this is bright pink coming north. Oops, I went the wrong way. And that's an away shot. Yeah. So we'll continue to move south, West Palm Beach to Miami. This is actually North Palm Beach. This is a train that I don't think runs anymore, 123. General merchandise up front. This is a high wide detector. And again, the old Dixie Highway is parallel on the railroad right here.
We had a question.
Yeah.
A couple minutes ago about a lighthouse. There was a lighthouse. Do you know if that was a working lighthouse?
You know, I don't know if it's working or not, because I've never been up in it at night. But it's a really interesting, and it's not just a lighthouse. There's a little bit of a park there, and some historical monuments, and maybe an old lighthouse tender's house. Yeah, my wife and I went up there one time when we were out visiting some friends in the area, and it's well worth the trip. Yeah. So now we're in West Palm Beach. I think this is 2017. I was with Bob Kaplan then, with a southbound, I'm not sure what local or what train this is. And I throw this in here to give you a closer look at all the plumbing that's necessary on the LNG cars to connect with each of the locomotives. But apparently it's been very successful. I think they have 6 of these tenders. Same location. This is a ballast train. As I said, FEC was primarily single track with sidings. Brightline built another track to the west, all the way from Miami up to Cocoa, tying it in with the sidings, if there were sidings, of course. And here they are ballasting, or at least heading towards where they were going to lay ballast for that track for Brightline. Interesting story here. This is the Brightline headquarters at that time, or their shops in West Palm Beach. And Bob Kaplan and I were there when they were only running. In fact, I don't think they were even running, Bob. They were just testing, right? If I remember. And we pulled in the parking lot and we're taking some pictures of the fence. And this gentleman here waved us over. And he turns out to be the project manager. He says, "You want to take some pictures?" No, that's not a good place. Come on in here. So he brought us in, let us take pictures, took us into the shops. I mean, he was a really nice guy. I think he was from New Jersey. He worked on New Jersey Transit. So he was very happy in Florida, and so were we. So here's that ballast train laying some ballast. This is the West Palm Beach station that's in the process of being constructed here. Now, a few years later, earlier this spring, we're at West Palm Beach. There's the station. Here's the northbound Bahamas RAP train pulling into the station. And here's a view of that same area with another northbound from the municipal parking garage. And this is sort of an example. You can't really see it in the photo as much as it being there. Is Fortress had this property. They built the railroad, a lot of rail traffic, good way to commute to Miami, apartment buildings, shopping, businesses. On the left of the screen, you see a parking garage being taken down. The parking garage that we are on top of is connected to a big shopping center. So they're trying to leverage the foot traffic from the railroad with the ability to generate real estate income. This is down on the ground. This is probably the most photographed parking garage in Florida. I've seen lots of pictures here. This is the Orlando RAP. And here another photo from the same general location. This is bright pink. No, I think this is red. Sorry, I think this is red. And then here is the Palm Beaches wrap set a little further south of that same location. Now we're in Fort Lauderdale on top of another parking garage. This is the Tarpon River. This is the southbound crossing the lift bridge. The cranes there are part of the construction for the west track that was under construction. This was a few years ago. Now we're down at, I guess this is called Port Miami Dodge Island. We're on an island across the intercoastal waterway. They run shuttles twice a day from Miami to Dodge Island, which has both the port for cargo as well as passengers. And if this isn't the prettiest paint scheme in an SD40-2, challenge me, because this is really nice. And they keep their power pretty clean, although I am noticing with my last trip that after 10 years, some of this stuff is looking a little worn. And there's the tail end of that. They have a locomotive at each end. So that's it for the FEC. So let's go to Orlando. Sunrail is the Orlando commuter service. It began service in May of 2014. It uses the former CSX line connecting Volusia County and Osceola County through downtown Orlando. They extended it to Point Siena in 2018, and they're apparently going to extend it, or did extend it to on the north end to DeLand. That was supposed to happen in August of this year. So this is the end of the line at Point Siena. There's a northbound waiting in the station. I got to talk to the crew. The engineer is a young guy. He used to work for Conrail, and the Conrail shared assets territory up in New Jersey. These MP32 PHQs were built by MPI in Boise, Idaho. And they've got 3,000 horsepower 645s. They ride on BB trucks. And they've been totally rebuilt or replaced, at least the power plants, with all new electronics. So they're quite an upgrade. Here we are at Kissimmee, again, in one of the new stations. The northbound, southbound's heading out of the station already. And this is what they were built off of. It's a streamlined cab, which hides the fact that they were originally GP40 freight units, which served Mark as they were GP40 with something H2s on the commuter trains. So here's a southbound area. I'm sorry. No, this is northbound. They do push-pull. The engines are always on the north side.
That's a direct question, Jim.
Yeah.
Why did they change the cab?
Why did they change the cab? I don't know. You'd have to ask the engineer. I mean, I'm assuming, how old are those GP40s? They were probably, pretty old. I mean, they upgraded all the internals, so they decided to put a new cab on them. But I can only guess. But their control cab looks like, and all the trains we saw were one unit and two cars. And I didn't really notice any surge. Well, I guess we were there mostly in the rush hour, but I think it's as much for just general tourism as commuters. That would be my guess. And there we are heading south out of Meadowwoods. And the stations were very nice. They all had a security guard. They were all very friendly. They talked with us. At one point, the train went by, I took a picture. I dashed to get ahead of the train because it was stopping to get another picture. I come huffing back and the gal says, "You get a nice shot?" So very, very pleasant. All right, we'll go to Tri-Rail. This is their line. It goes from Mangonia Park down to Miami. This is an CSX, probably Seaboard. And it hosts the Silver Meteor and the Silver Star, as well as nighttime CSX freights. There are seaboard stations at West Palm Beach, Deerfield Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Hollywood, but a number of newer stations as well. And one of the things that's going to happen here, Brightline started out Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and they developed a lot of commuter traffic. Now they're going all the way to Orlando. They want the long distance tickets, the long distance ticket sales. They don't want somebody buying a ticket for the South End and they can't sell one in Orlando to go all the way to Miami. So they've struck a deal with Tri-Rail, and Tri-Rail is going to be able to use the Brightline track, the FEC track, from actually somewhere north of even the territory that's on this map. So they can focus on the short haul and Brightline can focus on the long haul. Very interesting set of motive power. This is one of their 5, they're designated as F40 PHL-2s, and they were built from Conrail GP40s. That doesn't look like a GP40, right? But they use components from BNF45s. So that's a fair amount of the car body. So 2 cars behind it are DMUs that were acquired from Colorado. There's another photo of a similar concept. Kind of an ugly paint scheme on the locomotive. I really like the paint scheme on the cars though, with the palm trees. It doesn't show up real well in this photo, but it's a nice scheme. Shows up a little better here. So this is at Mangonia Park, and 812 is one of 6 GP49s that they got from NS. And they were rebuilt and are now GP49 H-3s. And I looked through my old photos and look what I found on an NS business train on the rat hole in 1989, a GP49. Not the same one I showed you a slide earlier though. Here's another 40 PHL-2 in a slightly more modern scheme. There's the DMUs. They were from Colorado Railcar. They got 6 of them in 2006. I don't believe they're running anymore. This is their latest power. They got 12 of these Brookfield BL36PH locos. I think they're kind of ugly, but here they are compared to a former GP49. This is at Boca Raton. So I'll take this guy.
Yeah, Chuck wondered if the scoop on the locomotives was to push the shopping cart.
I don't know. You see the bridges of the old lady walking across a Brightline track. I showed up on YouTube or Facebook just in the last day or two, and she just had a little shopping bag. Maybe one of them had a shopping cart. All right, well, this is uglier than the Brookfield locomotive. These are the Hyundai Rotem passenger cars, and this is one of their cab control cars. No, thank you. This is at Fort Lauderdale, and this is one of the old seaboard stations, and they look, rather nice with the palm trees and the tile. This is one of their newer stations. Somebody called this Caribbean Colonial. This is at the Fort Lauderdale Airport Dania Beach Station. And while you're hanging out there, you can photograph planes going in and out of Fort Lauderdale and appropriately enough, Caribbean Airlines. Another photo at that Fort Lauderdale station. And here's Bob Kaplan taking a picture at that same station. When we were down there this spring, we saw the debut, at least for us, of the new paint scheme. It was an F40 at West Palm, and it almost makes this one look good. All right, real quick view of the Florida Middling. This is one of a cluster of short lines. I think think they're owned by the same people that own East Penn. And the attraction here was they just got a couple of GP 16s, I think, 16-1-1. And Michael Burkhardt, who some of you might know, had some pictures of these, as did Roger Durfee, and I got a hold of them, got a little info on the operating plan. So we were able to find these. This is at Bartow Industrial Park in Gordonsville, right next to the airport. They're easily accessible. On a different day, they were actually running, and Bob and I caught them sorting cars at Eagle Lake, Florida. And even though they're simple black, the gold striping and sort of evoking the history of the seaboard paint scheme makes them rather attractive. Okay, now we're going to finish up with the United States Sugar Corporation Railroad. So the South Central Florida Express is a short line that's run by U.S. Sugar. They have a refinery in Clewiston, which is down there in the southwest corner of Lake Okeechobee, and the lines radiate out to the cane fields and beyond. The main line to the west follows US 27 towards Moorhaven, and then goes out to Sebring and the CSX connection. The main line to the east goes and wraps around the south end of the lake, goes through the cane fields and goes north at Belle Glade, ending up in Fort Pierce, where it interchanges with the FEC. This is a map sort of focusing in on the cane fields, and the red are the rail lines, and you can see there, two of them through there. The lighter lines are roads that are nominally belonging to the sugar plantation, and you would not necessarily be welcome on there. Although we didn't have any problem when we behaved ourselves. And the real dark lines are the main roads that you use to chase the trains around, and they don't move very fast. This is a Google Earth view, and I pinned all the loaders that I could find. How many of them are still active, but it's a very busy place. So here we are at the engine terminal. They run XICG, ICGP11s, those are the 300s. GP38-2s, those are 400s. And they've got some GP40s, which are numbered in the 500s. So the secret seems to be get up in the morning and look for smoke, because they burn the fields before they harvest them. So if they're burning, you're going to get some activity there before too long. This is the Miami Canal, and this is one of the roads. This one isn't paved, but is very easy to travel on. So they have these large harvesting machines that march through the fields like prehistoric beasts, cutting the stalks of the sugar and loading them into open trailers that are hauled by tractors that are running alongside them. And then those tractors take the beets, or the cane rather, to these loading platforms. You can see all these off in the distance using my 400mm lens strung out along the track. So here's that same train crossing the Miami Canal 6 hours after the fire. And here it is passing one of the loaders that you can get a closer look at from this view. And we decided to follow this into Clewiston, which is their main yard. And you notice those hoppers look a bit funny. They're actually box cars that they've taken the roofs off and they've cut ventilating holes, and I think there's mesh in there. So they get some ventilation from the sugar cane. And this was just sitting, this is one of the GP11s. So we photographed that when we had the chance. So west of Clewiston, we found a loaded train, and we're following it back, and I decided to get this pan shot at a row of grade crossing. The loaded trains heading back to Clewiston are always short hood forward. If it's long hood forward, it's an empty train going out to the field. I think we saw one exception to that rule. So this is Moorhaven, and that's the Caloosahatchee Canal, if I got that right. There's a big berm around the south end of Lake Okeechobee, and then there are these canals and rivers that are controlled release from Lake Okeechobee down south through the Everglades. Now this may be a train that's long hood forward but coming back, because I see some canes sticking out of there. So one morning on Sunday, we decided to head west looking for a train, and we saw 2 light engines sitting west of the bridge. And since all the cane trains we'd seen had only 1 engine, Bob, smart man, said, "I'll bet that's heading to Sebring to pick up cars from CSX." So we decided to roll the dice, and we drove 60 miles to Sebring, and guess what we found? So this was a potash train with a GP40 and a GP11 doing the honors in perfect light. Here it is in Lake Placid. We didn't see any bobsled run at this Lake Placid. Now we're south of Lake Placid. This is at Palmdale, crossing over an unnamed body of water. We hope to continue to follow it, but when we got to Moorhaven, this is on a highway bridge over the canal. We saw another train going west, so we figured the chase was probably over. Put the slide in though for the background. You can see that berm around Lake Okeechobee. On the other side of the berm, you don't see any water because water level is low, but there are routes that contain water up to the lake, and there are locks to the left out of the picture, and then what you see there are the release gates. So this is at Lake Harbor with another loaded train returning to Clewiston, and we waited for him to start moving. And here he is crossing the Miami Canal in mid-afternoon, and it's time to say the end.